And when we look at climate change relating to food systems, one of the main results of climate change is reduction in yields. And reduction in yields is followed by an increase in agriculture intensification, in deforestation, in increased use in resources like water and land, and actually all these responses increase climate change. And this, on top of the fact that the population of the world is increasing, again contributing to the increased demand and to climate change, increases climate change even further. And this is a vicious cycle that we have to stop. And diving into Israel, Israel is a very small, highly populated country with high population growth. It is very diverse. We have very diverse habitats and very diverse cultures. And 80% or more than 80% of the calories that we consume in Israel are imported. So on one hand, we found a solution. We import food from other countries. On the other, we had to be more efficient using our resources in order to be able to supply the Israeli people with healthy and sustainable food. And we have to do much more because we can't rely on food, only on food coming from other countries. We have to be able to provide food security to our people, both in face of climate change in Israel, but also in face of the influences of climate change in the source countries. So when we come to solve the food security problem in Israel, we can't look at Israel alone. Not only because we want to help the other countries finding solutions and technology, also because we depend on other countries, and we have to reduce this dependency as well as help other countries to fight climate change. So to do that, we formed an interministerial committee for sustainable and affordable food systems in Israel, which includes officials from 5 different ministries: the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Intelligence, the Ministry of Environmental Protection, and we also included Dr. Shira Efron, who's sitting here because she has an amazing knowledge not only in Israel but also in the surrounding countries. And Shira is a member working for the Diane and Guilford Glazer Foundation and the Institute of National Security Studies in Israel. And over the last year, we did an enormous amount of work. We had several committees working under this committee, trying to promote sustainable and affordable and healthy food systems in Israel. And you will hear some of the results of this intense work now. We were supposed to submit our results to the government by December. I don't know when it will happen, but we are at the final stages of formulating this program, and it will be available for everyone to read. And so in this session, what we will do is present processes and tools that are already being promoted at the government and the results of this committee, which combined ministries, academia, NGO, promoting, as I said, sustainable food systems. So we have an excellent list of women speakers, women leaders that promote sustainable food systems, and I am really honored to work with all of you, and this is a great opportunity to thank you all for collaborating. I think this is a really an excellent and rare collaboration between the ministries, unfortunately. And I'm honored to introduce the first speaker, Dorit Adler, which is the president of the Israeli Ministry for Sustainable Nutrition. Dorit, please.
Thank you. It's an honor and moving to be here in one of the most important sessions, I think, in the COP27. We are dealing with food systems and nutrition security for all, and I was asked to talk about the challenges. איך אני מעבירה? No, ימינה. Okay. So you were told a minute ago that food system in the Anthropocene represent one of the greatest health and environmental challenges facing the 21st century. We are now in the midst of a global syndemic: obesity, undernutrition, hunger, and climate crisis. To that, now we know that about a third of our population is suffering from hidden hunger, 1 in every second child and 2 of every 3 women. In addition to this, COVID-19 hit us and shed a light on the fact that nutrition is not only influencing our health by non-communicable diseases, but also threatening our health system in stage of epidemics. You know that 2/3 of COVID-19 hospitalization in the United States, that were hospitalized were sick with obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. In addition to this, we are in the midst of breaking high levels of drought, temperature high, fires, floods around the world, and to this added the Ukraine war, which could plunge world into food shortage. To this, we should add around 2 billion more for dinner very shortly. So how we will compete and stand for this challenge? So food system, climate crisis, and nutrition security are interrelated, as you know. And today we are living in food systems that actually are based on industrialized food production, which pursue degradation of the value of the food, pursuing NCDs on one side and crossing the planetary boundaries. On the other side, when you talk about the cost of the food, the cost, the availability on one side, and the real cost of food, these are actually pursuing nutrition insufficiency, deficiencies, and on the other side, resilience, degradation for humanity as a whole. Our food system, actually, as Noga has showed us, that we are, okay, so just to show you the in proportional of the food system that we live in, today 96% of the livestock are human, and of the mammals are human and livestock. And you can see the proportion here on the slide. It's 60% livestock and only 36% of humans. And we need to feed all this livestock, which we eat eventually, and it's very inefficient because for every 100 calories and every grams of protein that we feed, we get only 3% on our plates, 3 calories and 3 grams of protein. This is very inefficient, and as you know, less than half of the world cereals are going to feed people. So if we change that, we will have part of the solutions. To that, we can add that there is a rise in death from meat consumption. Slowly, we are rising with the death relating to meat consumption. And as you know, FAO came out with a position statement many years ago already on the livestock, the long shadow of the livestock industry. And you can see it on the right. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. You can see on, sorry, technology. Okay, so I'll continue from here. Okay, you can see the droughts and the fires of the degradation of the rainforest on the right side of the slide, the droughts, and this is why the WHO region in Europe came out with the position statement recommending mostly plant-based diet. Now it's stuck. Okay. Our food system contributes to the vicious circle, as Noga said. 60% of our global biodiversity is degraded, as well as our soil, water, and so on. And from almost 3,000 edible plants that are in the world, our diet depends only on 30, which is really putting our food system in a vulnerable situation. Over half of the world's energy provided by crops come from wheat, rice, and maize. Yes? A small number of countries dominate global crop exports, mostly 8-10, that the whole world depends on. And our food system is responsible for 80% of rainforest deforestation. This is what makes it very, very vulnerable. Sorry. Okay, and then when we talk about the true cost of the food, the value of the food system in the United States is around $1 trillion. But the cost associated with these food systems is about 2 trillion. That makes our food system actually value-destroying system. And this is something we have to transform for all humanity. We can turn it into a value-created system. You know that all SDGs are related to food systems, and without transforming it, we will not achieve any of these sustainable goals. And first of all, we need to eradicate hunger, but we're going backwards. Last night we heard that now 340 million are very hardly insecure. It was 100 million before. So we are going backwards, as Professor Nagosh Kornfeld-Shor said, and we need to transform our food system, and there is the planetary dietary recommendation that Eat Lancet came a few years ago. Now they're planning the second one, and we will have to reduce mostly our animal-based feed, mostly meat. In the affluent countries, it should be more than 50%. It can be maybe 70, 80% reduction in meat growing and consuming, and also the ultra-processed foods, which you can see here as the flour that comes from the grain. That means all the world is looking for grains today, but big part of it is going to ultra-processed food that Israeli recommendations, as well as Brazil, said loudly, it's better that we avoid consumption of these ultra-processed foods. On the other side, we know that there is the food waste that the United Nations Secretary General said, this is another thing, that it's unbelievable that on the one side we have so much hunger, and on the other side we have food waste, and this food waste is not by chance. Part of it is part of this system that is producing mostly commodity and not so much food, healthy food to feed the people. I would like to share with you a saying that the United General Secretary said lately. He said polluters must pay for windfall tax on fossil fuel profits to address climate cost of living crises. And we ask, what about the broken parts of the food system? We should do the same. We should call for the same call because the real costs are actually immense. Another point is the last two slides. The United Nations held Food System Summit last year, and many, many good ideas, plans, maps of action were written, and there is a question, is it just a paper of tiger? will it be implemented? And we are calling for its implementation, and we're calling for a huge sessions and a theme day like this next COP. To conclude, I would like to share with you two last sayings. The right slide goes with me over 20 years. It's WHO slide. It's yellow from use already. And it says, the causes are known. The way forward is clear. Now it's the turn to take action. It's our turn to take action. And the last saying is from Martin Luther King. This goes with me many, many, many years. And it says clearly, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I don't know many things that matter more than healthy, sustainable food, diet, food systems for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorit. I can say with a hint of positive, don't know what the word is, that it's amazing to see compared to the Glasgow COP, which was my first, that food systems are getting a lot of attention in this COP, and I think that we are on the path, and I hope that we are moving from talking about food systems to action. And the speakers from now on will talk about actions. And I'm very happy to invite Professor Ronit Endvelt, Director of the Nutritional Department in the Public Health and Division at the Ministry of Health, and also a professor at the University of Haifa, School of Public Health in Israel. Ronit, please.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the Ministry of Agriculture to host us today, our friends from the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm so happy to speak about solutions, because for the last 3 days we were facing mainly the challenges, and I think we can have solutions also. So I'm happy to be the first one who shows you some solutions that we think are possible. And we know that we face, besides the challenge of the climate change, we face also the challenge of obesity and overweight. We have high consumption of meat, but also for ultra-processed food. There's a big talk about meat consumption during those conferences, but much less discussion about ultra-processed food, which is also a major contribution to our unhealthy behavior and to the climate change. And other things is that we have to take care of the food security of all the populations, not only the one who are close to us, not only the one that we see in our sight. There are many people that are unsighted that we have to take care of them, and they are the weaker in the chain, in the weaker part of the chain. And the way to do it has to be very natural, has to be part of our daily lifestyle. And if we speak about nudge, and we speak about how we, in the ordinary day of life, when we go to the supermarket, when we go to buy food, it's obvious, we can see it. It's not difficult for us to find it. That's the way to nudge healthy nutrition. So we are working with international networks. We learn from other countries what helps and what are the obstacles. And also we have public engagement. It's crucial to see what the population agreed to upon, because if we do something and the population is against, it doesn't help us to write guidelines. And we were working with NOGA, and Dorit was also part of it, and all the ministries, to have these experts to speak about how we assimilate the nutritional guidelines within the day-to-day life. And it's a real challenge to see how guidelines are transmitted to behavior, because it's very nice to write guidelines, and we in health are expert in writing guidelines, but the challenge, the big challenge, is to see that people are following the guidelines and not only read them or even know them. So the way to do it was to put the front of pack labeling on the packaged food to show the high value of saturated fat, sugar and salt, which are big enemies of our health, and also they are part of most of the ultra-processed foods. And then to see how the industry will follow it. And what we found out, we'll show you in a minute, that the industry did a lot of reformulation, not to get the front of pack labeling, the judgmental ones. The other step is to see how to show people what the right thing to buy with the green labeling. The green labeling is voluntarily one, but the factories and the food industry is following also the green labeling in order to put them on the healthy products, healthy and sustainable products. And so when we go to the supermarket, we can see it very clearly. And it's easier to understand what is for and what is against what we need. And it's part of how it looks like. We also have back of pack labeling. On the back of the pack, we know the amount of sugar in teaspoon. So if we want to compare between the same category of food, for example, cereals or other products, we can choose the one with the less teaspoon of sugar on it. So people says they are now trying to find out whatever product has much less sugar in it. And it's also sugar is also one of the big contributor to climate change. So that's also very important. So we did evaluation of what happened because of the front of pack labeling. And we showed there was a huge influence on the food industry, but also on people purchase behavior. There's a sharp decrease in purchasing the product that have front of pack labeling, the red ones. And we are now evaluating what's the percentage of buying the green labeling products, which are followed by the nutritional guidelines. Our nutritional guidelines were launched in 2018. It was like 4 years ago, and it was a fruit of a committee that decided that for the first time, the nutritional guidelines not only will deal with food, but also will deal with environment, with economy, with behavior, and also with health. So all those aspects are part of the new rainbow that was instead of the traditional pyramid that used to be the guidelines of the nutrition guidelines in Israel. And if we want to know how to assimilate the nutrition guidelines, then we have to go to the supermarket and go and look for the front of pack labeling to see the green labeling. Another thing with the green labeling that we have it open, also in open markets, also on fruits and vegetables that are not packed one, but we do want people to consume them. We published an article about the scientific criteria for the green labeling, and it was published, and I think it's one of the most popular article. Many countries ask us to share with them our nutritional scientific guidelines, and you can see on the left side that there are many products that already have those green labeling on them. And there's no ultra-processed food getting any green labeling, which is also very important. Another thing which is a big debate now in Israel is the tax over sweet and sweetened beverages. And that's a product that is unhealthy to the human and unhealthy to the globe. Because we know that the leftover from all the bottles can ruin all our food system and our climate. And there was a big success after this tax launch. We have very nice results on the influence. Could you show them? I'll show you a small part of a new campaign that we did about sweet beverages.
נעים להכיר, עידן הלא נעים. שתייה ממותקת, תופעה היסטורית מוזרה אך מרתקת. אף על פי שהיא גרמה נזקים לרבים, השמנה, סוכרת, מחלות לב וכלי דם, עששת והתמכרות, היא כונתה בזמנה שתייה קלה. הזוי. נמשיך.
יואו, 30 כפיות סוכר? זה היה רשום והם שתו את זה?
כן. נמשיכה. הם גם הגישו אותם בבית ובעבודה לאורחים ולילדים שלהם.
רגע, הם רצו שהאורחים ינוחו?
הם חשבו שככה הם מפנקים אותם.
הזוי.
באותה תקופה הלא נעים היה יותר חזק מהכל.
יותר מהבריאות? תקופה מוזרה.
אך מרתקת. נמשיכה. מיצג.
Okay, we did this campaign. It got the second prize of the best commercial campaign. What was the first one? McDonald's. Okay, so I think it's a good example to show that even if we do something very influential, it is in a competition with other stuff, which is not so simple as we know. But the reason for this campaign was that we understood that we feel that people need to change the norm for sweet beverages. Not to feel that it is obligatory to serve sweet beverages wherever they serve dinner or they have a visitor or they have guests. So that's why we did this campaign. And so what is the next step? The next step is to really see what is in our plate, how it influences the climate, and how the ultra-processed food will not be part or a major part of our diet. And we have many challenges in that. And because we know that the ultra-processed food has a lot of influence on all our behavior, all our system, all our ability to feel satiety, and the many ultra-processed foods. The ultra-processed food matrix also change our eating pattern, eating behavior. It causes obesity, and it's a huge, huge problem. So, and we know that the percentage of consuming ultra-processed food is higher and higher from each year to the other year, and we want mainly plant-based alternative nutrition diet, and we really don't have a protein problem, as is mentioned everywhere. And if we will start using this cultivated meat and new kind of alternative protein, we have to be careful that it's healthy also. I don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe it's very good, but we have to take care also of the influences and to be aware of them, because by now, most of them are ultra-processed food. So we are planning now to do a nutritional database that will collect all the food items and all the nutrients and all the other stuff in order to have research and be able to do it, that the person in the middle will know how to act, will know how to behave in this environment. This is full of a lot of noise, and how this noise can be reached to each one person in our society in order to make this big change that all of us want. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronit, and I will add that. Thank you, Ronit. Maya. We hear you very loudly. The acoustics here is not that good. So I'd like to thank Ronit and say that Ronit was also heading a committee that worked in collaboration with the Ministry of Education on developing an educational program from age 3 to the university promoting sustainable food systems, and I guess Ronit will be here. And healthy nutrition, yeah, and sustainable includes healthy nutrition. That's a basic requirement. And I'm sure that if you're interested in it, we'll be happy to tell you about it. And our next speaker is Dr. Yael Kachal. She is the head of Research, Economy and Strategy Division at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Israel. Yael, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I will talk about the role of government in transforming agriculture. let's see if I'm okay. Yeah. I will start with giving you a bit background and then telling you what we are what we are planning to do to transform the agricultural sector. Actually, what you see here, it's just to remind you that changing agriculture and food systems, it's a very complex challenge. We have agriculture as a substantial emitter of climate gas emissions, and on the other hand, agriculture is also should be part of the solution. Agriculture, of course, is the basis for providing food security. So to deal with this challenge and transform agriculture and food systems, we have to take a food systems approach, thinking about the linkages and interactions, and talking about adaptation and mitigation. So if we are looking on adaptation, you see here it's really a big challenge, especially if you are located in the Eastern Mediterranean. What you see here on the left-hand side, it's the increase in temperature we already had, and which is projected for the next decades. It's much higher than the overall increase in temperature. And also on the right-hand side, you see our projections for rainfall patterns in Israel, also a substantial decrease in rainfall. So how we deal with it, what we have to do, we have to take action. And on the other hand, if you're looking on mitigation, it seems that at least in Israel, agriculture is just a small part. You see agriculture and forestry, it's just 2.5%, 2.4% of the total reported emissions. But this doesn't take into account emissions in the overall food systems, in downstream and upstream activities. So it's essential to take a LCA approach, looking at the total system. And this is something what is done now in Israel in cooperation between governments. There's a study led by the Environmental Protection Ministry and in cooperation with the Agricultural Ministry, trying to quantify emissions in the total food system so that we can establish targets for reduction and see what are the most efficient, relevant actions to take to decrease mitigation. Okay, so we have to measure, we have to establish targets and to develop an overall strategy for sustainable food systems and providing food security. And I will now talk about things we are doing and will continue to do. So one project done in the Ministry of Agriculture, it's a risk assessment for Israeli agriculture. In the framework of this project, we, together with the Meteorological Service of Israel, we established climate change indicators relevant for different agricultural sectors and map them over time. And we have projections how these indicators will change in the coming decades in different areas of Israel. So an indicator might be, for example, the heat stress for cows. So it will enable us to see what will happen in different, maybe in some areas we can't have dairy farms anymore, or we have to take actions to adapt the growing system to deal with these indicators. Now we are in the stage of doing a risk assessment, taking these indicators a step further, feeding them into crop models for main agricultural commodities and seeing how how this climate change will influence productivity, water requirements in different areas of Israel. And in the framework of this work, we are also looking on risks to imports of agricultural products from other markets. We are doing a mapping to, Noga said before, we are very dependent of imports of for calories especially, less for fruit and vegetables. So we are trying to analyze the risk of these import dependencies and thinking about actions, how we can decrease this. So this will provide us with the information to have an overall strategy for dealing with climate change and food security of our agricultural sector. It's still an ongoing work. We are hoping to finish it next year. And in the meantime, because climate change, it's not something you can wait, you have to take action. So, I just wanted to also to give you an example of output of this crop modeling we are doing with, in the framework of the risk assessment. These are preliminary results for how climate change will influence potato yields in the main potato growing region of Israel. So you can see that there's a projection of a decrease of 25% of potato yields, and on the same hand, we will have increased water requirements. We heard already about the interministerial committee working actually on what we can do in the next years to deal with climate change and make food systems more resilient to climate change. So there were different working groups in this committee, and I want to give you some examples about the working groups related to agriculture. So in our part of the action plans, we dealt with adaptation and also mitigation. With adaptation, in addition to the risk assessment I was talking before, so we are looking on knowledge gaps for research, where we have to invest more. We are trying to promote solutions, adoption of solutions by farmers which are already known to have a beneficial effect at helping farmers to deal with climate change. And you see there's some examples. So there's an avocado grove with nets which you can close to when there's heat stress and open it when they are not needed to not decrease yields. You see this turbine there. It's for coping with freezing temperatures. It just moves the air and preventing damages of freeze. And on the down side, you see the cows there and having sprinklers and reducing heat stress for cows, cooling them down actually. And technology. So what with regards to mitigation? So if we are looking at mitigation in agricultural production, so what we can do? And we actually looking at four main subjects, which we are will promote in the framework of this action plan. Two are connected to plant production and two to animal production, livestock production. So in plant production, it's increasing the efficiency of nitrogen fertilization and promoting carbon sequestration in agriculture. You see here two photos, an example of conservation agriculture with soil cover to promote carbon sequestration. And in the livestock sector, we are concentrating on more efficient and to improve the management of feed systems to decrease enteric fermentation of livestock production, cattle production, and on manure management. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, and we have to, we can't wait, we have to take action now, establish, oh, sorry. We have to establish goals and take action to promote them. And if someone wondered why I put the first slide, what it is, the connection to climate change, so you can see it here. It's banana plantations in Israel covered by nets, and this enables us to decrease the use of water by about 25%. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Yael. Yael, you took the clicker. Thank you, Yael. It's exciting to see the advancement that was made by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs this year, and we are thankful for the collaboration. And our next speaker is Moran Bleichfeld Magnesi. She's the Deputy Director of the Nutrition Department at the Public Health Division at the Ministry of Health, and also at the University of Haifa at the School of Public Health. Moran, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much. I will mainly refer to education as a tool for healthy and sustainable food system. And thank you very much for all the partners that are here, and also Gilmore Keshet from the Ministry of Education. Climate and nutrition education should be addressed to everyone, not just for children. We would like to avoid creating new problems while trying to solve existing problems. So our goal is to educate all sides involved, including general population, policymakers, health and environmental professionals, and others. We aim to work in collaboration with other government departments and other civil bodies and environmental organizations, so we can all pool resources and move in the same direction to solve our climate and nutrition concerns. The goal is also to affect the economy, and the food industry, and to increase the demand of healthier food. When we talk about education, then education for what? We want to impart knowledge about the connection between nutrition and climate change, educate for critical thinking about research funding, who is the sponsor, and how to look at food advertisement and food politics. We want to give practical education in cooking skills and tools to prevent food waste. We want to educate everyone to get used to, love, and consume raw flavor instead of processed flavor. And in general, provide education to slow down, including in food, to change the culture of consumption, return to our roots and tradition, and appreciate the food we eat. It sounds obvious and not so innovation solution, but if we put our effort into it, I believe we can succeed. As you know, the relationship between nutrition and climate change refers to two aspects. Adaptation, we need a program for food and nutrition security, and mitigation. The food system is related to almost a third of the greenhouse gas emission, And we in the government offices refers to a number of main recommendations: reducing the consumption of animal-based food, preventing food waste, using reusable utilities, and reducing the consumption of ultra-processed food. In all aspects of lifestyle, from environmental point of view, the problem is mainly industrialization and the culture of consumption. Therefore, it is also necessary to educate for a moderate and high-quality consumption of food. It is important to know that instead of animal-based food, it is better to choose legumes and nuts than processed meat substitutes. Because we know from many studies that a plant-based diet has many health benefits as long as the diet is based on healthy food. Beyond the harmful effect on human health, culinary tradition, and social life, there is also environmental impact that ultra-processed food has. We consume a high amount of it, more than necessary. The environmental impact is related to overconsumption, reduced variety of crops, systematic use of fertilizer and pesticides, vast use of water, mainly industrial process, transport, and food packaging waste. The contribution percentage of ultra-processed food to our diet is high, and in some countries even reach to 60% of the daily calories. We need a holistic solution. It is excellent that the industry is improving the food and investing in making it more environmental and healthier. And we are very proud of the global and Israeli developments. But at the same time, it is important that we reduce the percentage of ultra-processed food in our diet. This in line with the nutritional recommendation almost all over the world, and also in Israel, which take into account in the recommendation all aspects: health, environmental, economic, and social. But it's not easy. Therefore, even though the lecture is about education, traditional education is not enough. Education is part of the solution, but we must also change the food environment and actually do positive environmental education. Changing the food environment, it's not so simple. So it's necessary that we all cooperate and work together. From the moment we open our eyes everywhere, at home and when we go outside to work, to school, to a conference, and on the street, we are exposed to advertising and food marketing that is often harmful. We get used to processed taste, and in fact, we don't really have the option to make healthy choices. It will not help if a child learns in class about healthy and sustainable diet, and when leaving the class, there will be a harmful drink vending machine. Even for us as adults, the ultra-processed food make it easier for us in our busy lives. It is available, convenient, and tasty. I want to show you an example for food advertising data in Israel. It can be seen that in only 5 months, the financial expenditure on food advertising was 140 million shekels, $40 million, of which 83% was on harmful food, as you can see here in red. And 25% of the expenses are on soft drinks. We as a Ministry of Health do not have those budgets for advertising healthy food. Therefore, we need the professional and additional regulatory tools and the community so that we can make a change in the nutritional norm. That is why we are trying to build an educational infrastructure in order to successfully heal the food system and make a change in the nutritional norm. We are working to increase manpower, especially professional nutritionists. We are thinking of mechanisms that will incentivize the institutional kitchen to serve high-quality plant-based food. We invest in supporting research, including improving the National Nutritional Database and monitoring the ecological footprint in the Israeli FFQ questionnaire. We wrote position paper on ultra-processed food. We promote nutritional regulation. We define the healthy food basket, and the plan is to make it affordable. In addition, we advise and work in cooperation with food suppliers, kitchen, including in the military, hospital, and in ultra-Orthodox society. Over the years, we have been working to promote a healthy diet, including in public education, in the national program called Efshari Bari, Healthy is Possible, in workplaces, educational setting, and local authorities. Regulation for serving healthy food in school, front-of-pack labeling, and taxes on sugary drinks. Publication of the National Nutritional Guidelines and nutritional campaign. In addition, we require the nutrition studies at the in the academy include nutrition and sustainability content in the curriculum by adding questions on the subject in the government test. Our plan for the coming years and beyond, including promoting regulation to prevent harmful food advertising, tracking food consumption data, and ecological indicator, health promotion program for preschools and teenagers, and more. Sometimes the innovation is to return to the simple thing we already have. We encourage children to learn cooking and farming skills. We teach some of the children to work in the garden and expose them to the process of growing food and see that vegetables grow in the soil and not in the supermarket. In addition, we need to start education at a young age as to teach them to love and get used to taste of the raw food. We have updated the nutritional guidelines for babies so that children are served more plant-based food. A baby who is exposed to tofu and beans is more likely to eat it in the afternoon at school and at home. We are working to increasing the visibility of the green label at the points of sales, encourage the purchase of healthy food, working with the ultra-Orthodox sector, both regarding the sweet drink campaign and training the cooks for healthy and sustainable cooking. I must say that we will still have a lot of work to do. It is difficult to implement the changes, as I said before. Our environment does not always allow this. There is no advanced technology or magic solution here. In order for consumption to be healthier and more environmentally friendly, the production of harmful food should also be reduced. The tools to success should be integrated: education, regulation, community, and global collaboration. I thank you very much for listening. This is my email. I will be happy to be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moran. I think that education is a huge part of our fight against climate change, both in terms of mitigation and adaptation. And I think that it's amazing that the Ministry of Health is promoting an educational program, and I think we should salute Moran and Ronit for that program. It's really amazing. Our next speaker is Dr. Michal Levy, who is the Chief Scientist and Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Agriculture and Innovation? Agricultural and Rural Affairs. Ministry of Israel. Michal, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, and it's great to be here. Thanks, Noga, and I really want to thank the rest of the ministries for this great collaboration for this event and for our day-to-day work together, because only together we will face these challenges. So I will skip all the challenges that all of us are aware, and actually this is the reason why we are all here in this convention. And I just want to point to one specific challenge, which is looking at the space, at the area that the humanity have for what is this? Okay, that humanity have for actually practicing and producing food, practicing agriculture, and the land that all of us at the globe have for practicing agriculture is actually reducing with time, because more and more space is needed for cities, and also part of these lands become infertile and hard to actually work and produce food. And at the same time, of course, we talk about increasing population, which is actually going on different two directions. So in order to cope with this challenge, I think there are two directions that as humanity we can move to. One is finding new ways to grow our food, and the other is to increase yield, okay? So, I mean, to use the same space, but just to produce more than what we are producing today. And when I'm talking about new growing methods, it's of course to reach to places that we didn't use until today, and we can use them to grow food. For example, hides. We know today how to grow fruits on what we call the intensive orchard, fruit wall. And actually, if we'll go higher, by using new machinery, new robotics, we have new areas that we still didn't use to grow food. So in this example, technology can be on our side and to support us when we come to look for new places. Another method, of course, is known to all of us, is to grow in close systems, indoor. Today, we invest a lot in how to light, to have the special light for each crop, and to control the environment, humidity, and by the way, by using these systems, we can also reduce chemicals, sometimes not use chemicals at all. This is better than organic, no any chemicals, but there is a huge challenge here because economically we know how to grow mainly greens, lettuce, and actually if we want to go and lay on these systems for actually supporting us with foods, we need to put much more in R&D in order to bring new varieties and new vegetables, potatoes, to grow in these systems. And actually, we all say that we are in the fourth agricultural revolution, which is the technological revolution. Now we are inserting into practicing agriculture technologies such as robotics, Internet of Things, image processing, and all the rest. But it's very interesting when we are here talking about climate to try to dissect this period of time and see how technology is evolving. So we are talking today that this revolution, the fourth agricultural revolution, already faced 3 generations. The first one is what we call the precision agriculture. It was based on GPS. Okay, we know the location that action is needed, and the farmer can come and spray specifically in this location, for example. The second generation is what we call the digital farming. At this generation, we're talking about the entering of sensors to monitor what's going on in the farm. And now the grower can make decision based on data, okay, that is actual. He receives it to his cell phone, laptop, or whatever. So it makes his work much more smart, okay, and actionable when he gets the data. But if we are here today at the COP and we are talking about climate, so the third generation that we are still in it is basically how to practice a sustainable agriculture by using all these great technologies. I think that all people that are practicing today agriculture, farmers, growers, they now understand that their actions in the borders of their farm has implications on the environment, on the planet. And by using new technologies, we can practice better agriculture. We can, of course, reduce the use of chemicals and other other inputs, such as water, for example, and still to practice good agriculture. And I want to take a few more minutes that I still have to talk about increasing yield, because this is the other way of producing more on the same land that we have. And today at the Ministry of Agriculture, we invest a lot in gene editing. Gene editing for, just to make everyone familiar with this technique. It's basically, it's not anymore very innovative. Still, it's very specific way to use our knowledge in order to get better varieties, to receive new varieties of any crops, but have a special trait that we want. And I think it starts to be understandable that all humanity needs to find a way to regulatory use these varieties. Okay. Okay, and when I'm talking about creating new varieties with gene editing, basically it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, that we need to find a way to grow and find new varieties and new crops to grow indoors, such as potatoes and tomatoes and all other vegetables that are part of our diet, and to produce new varieties that can grow outdoor, but they will be resilient for climate change. Resistance to salinity and to dryness and other traits. Sorry. Oh, okay. So, so basically, these two methods can be, gene editing, sorry, can be supportive in order for us to grow new varieties indoor and better varieties that can fit for climate change. And in general, I think that when we come to develop new technologies and to fit new varieties for agricultural work, we have to combine forces between knowledge, between people that develop technology, and with people that actually do the work, agronomists and farmers. So basically, when we'll do this combination, and we're all talking about multidisciplinary work, and we try to do that, this is the way that will bring us the new varieties, the new methods, new growing methods, as I said, also with the breeding, and also new crops. And new crops can be also new source for protein. For example, if we'll increase in potato the percentage of protein, that can be very beneficial for humanity. And also using algae and insects and other sources to bring more protein to our diet. And with that, I would like to thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Michal. And our last, but in no way least speaker is Dr. Shira Efron. Shira Efron is from the Diane and Goldford Foundation, and she's also a member of the Institute for National Security Studies, and Shira is also an advisor to the Ministry of Defense and to the National Security Counselor, and she consults me on a daily basis on many different questions unofficially. So I'm very happy to introduce Shira. Shira, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Noga. And I do want to acknowledge, so I'm a fellow with the Israel Policy Forum, but the support is enabled by the very long name, the Diane and Guilford Glazer Foundation, and its representatives Jeff and Karen are here. So thank you for your support. And thank you all for staying for this long panel and for including me, Noga, and others. So my fellow panelists spoke mostly about the Israeli situation, food security in Israel, that clearly faces some challenges, and there are solutions, but I think we would all agree that these challenges pale in comparison to the challenges faced by Israel's neighbors. And because when we talk about food security, it's not just food security in Israel, it's not just food, it's also national security. What I would like to do in my 10 minutes, or 9.5 minutes, is speak about, just give some data points on food insecurity in the region, talk about the solutions that these countries, which we can't control, may adopt, but also maybe propose a regional approach that can help us collectively turn food from a factor of competition and conflict into an engine of innovation and cooperation. So I'll just start with a quick snapshot. We're not going to go into each and every country, and I just showed mostly the Levant and some other countries. There are really good data on this, but you know, we're in Egypt, so let's start with Egypt, right? Egypt imports 85% of its wheat from Ukraine and Russia, so clearly now in the news. Let me tell you something, it was in the news also in August of 2010, but we all forgot. You would say, well, it's sweet, there's other food, right? Well, when we talk about Egypt, really, which consumes more than twice the global average of bread, wheat is almost everything, and close to 90% of the Egyptian population is enrolled in bread, in wheat rationing programs. Jordan, to Israel's neighbor, strategic partner on the east, is one of the most water-stressed countries in the world. It also imports 85% of its wheat, and 95% of its food. And what's interesting about Jordan is that sadly it became this, we used to say between Iraq and a hard place about Jordan. So it's a country that is a host to millions of refugees, and international support for refugees, which includes also food support, is declining. And we're going to see more of that. I'm not going to go into Lebanon and countries that are marred by conflict. I think it's interesting also when we are talking about Israel, where Palestinians is a very a tough political issue to speak about. But we're talking about West Bank and Gaza, where in Gaza we see 69% of self-reported food insecurity rates, high dependence on imports, obviously from Russia, Ukraine, but also through Israel. And this is something we all need to think about. So what happened? Remember, we just heard about the agricultural revolution, and the second and the third, maybe the fourth is coming, but the first agricultural revolution started in the Fertile Crescent here. It wasn't always like that. Of course, water scarcity in this region is the most water scarce region in the world. Over 50% of the population in the MENA region is subject to conditions of water stress, and this number is going to double by 2050. Climate change, obviously we don't have to blabber the point. When we talk about population growth, population growth, is that better? So population growth in this region, not just in Israel, is the highest rate worldwide, with urbanization rates that are also growing very, very fast, and agricultural productivity does not keep up. There's food import dependency, as we saw in the previous slide, just example of that, and this exposes regional countries to substantial risks and vulnerability to shocks that are supply shocks, price shocks, supply chain shocks, and others. When we talk about food security, it's also important to say it's not just the quantity, it's also the quality, and unfortunately, the unhealthy diets of this region. We saw in Israel, it's not just an Israel phenomena. Over a third of the calories consumed in this region are of wheat products subsidized by governments. Third of the calories, right? So we're talking about those are providing calories but not nutrients, and we're seeing between quarter and a third of the population of the region that is obese alongside malnutrition and stunting, and those same food subsidies that bring us all these unhealthy diets, they also undermine the development of a flourishing food private sector industry. There are many things that countries themselves need to do. The first have to do with basically reducing risks related to import dependency, and those are complicated things like fiscal discipline and fixing one's budget and reducing the volatility of commodity prices. Also the development of social protection measures. It's not just the subsidies for all, it's taking care of the really most vulnerable populations with safety nets and food aid programs, especially in times of crisis. Investing in domestic agriculture and cutting-edge food technologies. We saw some of the examples from Israel, and it won't just increase food security, wouldn't just improve that, but also it can be used as an engine for economic growth and job creation. Really interesting things are happening in that regard in Morocco, but it's a drop in the bucket and so much more needs to happen. Improve the efficiency of imports and storage and sorting. There's a typo here, but sorting processes. I'll tell you, this sounds like technical things, but the delays that come with processes, that how long it takes you to sample at the border when you import food, that is something that can hinder the supply of grains, but also other things. And using the digital technology and all those tools that Michal just spoke to us about in terms of improving resilience of farmers, they can be deployed here. But what's important is that even if each country does what it needs to do to improve food security in silos, there's real merit, I think, for a regional approach to address some of these problems that are really not local and they're global, but the region has its own characteristics, and also there are implications for distance. So I will just and I will introduce some of the measures that I'm proposing. But the idea is that if we look at everything we can do alone, and if we can identify the measures that would be improved if we do them at scale, this is what we should focus on, and it's really would be a win-win for all. First of all, there's a merit to improving food security, national food policy, by learning from others. Israel certainly has a lot to share. I'm sure Israel has a lot to learn also. Food security is not just food security. You're right. I mentioned it's a national security issues, and there's a panel at the U.S. With people from the Pentagon and the State Department just speaking about this an hour ago. And if we think about cooperating to mitigate those transboundary national security implications, coordinating to protect the vulnerable populations, primarily refugees, which we have a lot in the region, and the framework that I would propose is looking not just at what we can do to try to prevent a crisis and preempt a crisis, but also when a crisis will come, and it will come, that we have a better and efficient response. So I'll just start with I have 5 pillars that I'll go through briefly. The first one is maybe the easiest to speak about, which is R&D, regional food R&D innovation that focuses on the challenges that are unique to this region. There are specific challenges that have to do with growing frequency and intensity of dust and sandstorms, water scarcity, obviously, and there are, we can talk about desalination, but also wastewater reuse, which, by the way, is a cultural issue in some places with the adoption of technologies, increasing domestic food production, but under the conditions that prevail in our region, looking at certain types of seed engineering that are tolerant for brackish water. talking about water, food, and energy nexus. We can't do this in silos anymore. The distribution and procurement processes, there are challenges in Israel, but Israel has a lot to teach. The data that I know, I don't correct me on my fellows, is we're talking about a 0.5% loss compared to the global average of 20%. Another one is enhancing the effectiveness of grain reserves. All of us, every time we heard King Abdullah of Jordan speak twice about the region should have a joint grain reserve. It's very, very complicated. It's not something you can do that easily, but we can examine the merit of such an idea. Maybe a regional trading hub. Maybe joint systems for monitoring the stockpiles and releases, and reducing the risk of spoilage, and also virtual stockpiles, which are financial tools, really. I'll just 2 more minutes. The food supply, you know, I mentioned the dependence of the regional countries on food exporters. If you look at this list, there are not that many countries that produce wheat. There are not that many countries that produce anything. So if you want to diversify your food suppliers, because whatever we're going to do, we're going to be still dependent on food imports, it's better to do this jointly. And we can talk about negotiating collectively for improved long-term contracts. I mean, when a country like Egypt comes to compete in the global market with China, it stands no chance. But if we put our powers together, then you're increased your market power, not to mention trading routes and others. I think this is self-explanatory that we start sharing these conversations about our national food policies and have an expert peer review so we know what our neighbors are doing and improving them. And the final one, I'll end with this, is the unified and coherent crisis response. As I said, when we get to the crisis, we should all understand how can we not gobble up together all these means and try to say like we need to assist each other, but having an agreement before, maybe intra-regional agreements that at least we will refrain from export restrictions. I don't know if you know, after the crisis in the Black Sea, another 35 countries instituted export restrictions on food products. So at least countries in the region could do this. Maybe agreements on in-kind emergency food aid. We saw it during COVID, right? We realized that when others are not safe, we're not safe either. So there's an interest in helping with PPE and with vaccines, and the same is true with food supplies. And I'll just end with this. I don't know if you know, but on Saturday, the Egyptian government with the UN launched an initiative. It's called FAST. Food and Agriculture for Sustainable Transformation Initiative. They all have really funny names. And it has a lot of similar pillars. And they're talking about associating and relating to other regional and global initiatives that exist. And there's nothing in this list about the Middle East. Nothing. So I would really hope that this initiative that becomes now a recurring one at the COP and funded by the UN and supported by the UN, the national government of Egypt, can align with something that's focused on our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Shira. It's always fascinating to listen to your holistic and international view, and I think it's an excellent topic to end the session with. I'll just say that food systems are a big part of the problem, but they are also a major part of the solution, and the collaboration within Israel and between Israel and other countries is a must. And I hope that during the last year, until the COP in UAE, we will be able to present some results. And Daniel, if you want to say a few words, thank you.
First of all, we will thank you, Noga, for your contribution to this important panel. Special thanks for all the speakers. Everyone, I hope that it's enough satisfied with this event. And I would like to invite all the people to the next event of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. That will be in another 1.5 hours, around 1 hour, 2:45, and this will be the relationship between water and agriculture. That I think this is a very important event. Thank you very much for being here. נעשה בחוץ, תראו. Thank you. השקופית הראשונה.